The next question in practice problem is to determine the transfer function of the electrical network shown. So we'll start with the solution. Okay, so first step is to apply KVL to both the loops. So with that, I'll write the KVL equations. We'll have EI is equal to 1 by C1 integration I1 of t into dt, make this EI of t, plus R1 into I1 of t minus I2 of t. So I'll just simplify this equation. EI of t is equal to 1 by C1 integration I1 of t dt plus R1 I1 of t minus R1 I2 of t. So we'll take Laplace of this equation. So taking Laplace, we will have EI of S is equal to 1 by C1S 1 by C1S plus R1 whole multiplied by I1 of S minus R1 into I2 of S. So I'll re-simplify this. 1 plus R1 C1S divided by C1S into I1 of S minus R1 I2 of S. This becomes my equation number 1. Similarly, I'll apply KVL to loop 2. So for that, I'll get R1 I2 of t minus I1 of t plus 1 by C2 I2 of t into dt plus R2 I2 of t is equal to 0. So I'm not doing in-step KVL application of KVL because since we have already studied this in the last semesters itself, writing KVL equations directly will not be a problem to your level. So I'm skipping many steps in between. So just make a note of it. Okay. So I'll just take Laplace of this equation. So Laplace transform, then I'll get R1 I2 of S minus I1 of S plus 1 by S C2 I2 of S plus R2 I2 of S is equal to, I'll take all I2 term one side. So R1 plus 1 by SC2 plus R2 into I2 of S minus R1 I1 of S is equal to 0. Further simplification of this equation, I'll take all, I'll separate I2 and I1 terms completely. So I want the expression to be in terms of I2 only. The expression of I1 in terms of I2. So with that I can write I2 of S is equal to R1 I1 of S whole divided by R1 plus R2 S C2 plus 1 divided by SC2. I've simplified this expression. Okay. So with that I'll get R1 C2S into I1 of S divided by R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1. This becomes my equation number 2. I'll substitute equation 2 in equation 1. Substitute equation 2 in equation 1. So for that, EI of S is equal to 1 plus R1 C1 S divided by C1 S plus, it's not plus, it becomes minus R1 into this term. So R1 square C2 S divided by R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1. This whole term will be multiplied by I1 of S. So further simplification of this, I'll have 1 plus R1 C1 S multiplied by R1 SC2 plus R2 SC2 plus 1 minus R1 square C1 C2 S square whole divided by C1 S into R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1. So I'll simplify this term. So I'll get R1 SC2 plus R2 SC2 plus 1. Then R1 square C1 C2 S square plus R1 C1 R2 C2 S square plus R1 C1 S minus R1 square C1 C2 S square, and the denominator will be R1 plus R2 C1 C2 S square plus C1 S. So in this you can see R1 C1 C2 S square minus R1 square C1 C2 S square and minus R1 square C1 C2 S square. These two term gets cancelled. Okay, so all the S term, this is the S term, and this is the S term, and S term will be kept separately. So my EI of S becomes R1 C1 R2 C2 S square plus R1 C2 plus R2 C2 plus R1 C1 into S plus 1 whole divided by R1 plus R2 C1 C2 S square plus C1 S. This becomes my EI of S. So I'll name this equation as equation number 3. Now coming to the figure, I'll just copy this figure. Sorry. So what is E naught? So E naught is equal to E naught of t is equal to I2 of t into R2. So I can write while taking Laplace R2 into I2 of s. With that R2, I2 of s we have calculated here. The same expression will be used. R1 C2s um, this was nothing but I2. So R1 C2s I1 of s divided by R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1. With that, my E naught of S becomes R2 R1 C2S whole divided by R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1 into I1 of S. So even here, sorry if I miss, this is into I1 of S. So everything has to be multiplied by I1 of S. Fine. So now what we do here is that we take next step is E naught of S divided by EI of S. So for that, E naught of S is R2 R1 C2S divided by R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1 multiplied by. So whatever equation 3 you have to just write the reciprocal of that. Even that I'll write R1 plus R2 SC2 plus 1 into C1S whole divided by R1 C1 R2 C2 S square plus R1 C1 plus R2 C2 plus R1 C2 into S plus 1. I1 of S gets cancelled. And you can see this term and this term gets cancelled. This has to be. So these two terms gets cancelled. With that I can write my transfer function is equal to R2 R1 C1 C2 S square whole divided by R1 R2 C1 C2 S square plus within the bracket R1 C1 plus R2 C2 plus R1 C2 into S plus 1. So this becomes my transfer function. Thank you.